Hello everyone, I'm Linda from Purple Rose Digital, and today I will show you how to make my French country shabby chic note card folio. Okay, so we'll start with the cover. There's 3 panels and a closure flap. So there's your flap, your panel, your second panel, and your third panel. So I've already put some tape on the glue flaps, and let me just got it the wrong way around because now I'm looking at the front side, so it's the other way around. And let me just align them like this, and now we're just going to glue them together. And with this, your alignment is crucial, so just make sure you get it nice and straight so that your whole folio comes together nicely. So I'll start with the flap and just glue that onto panel number 1. The flap has a liner, so that's why the back is white. And then panel number 2 also has a liner because that's where we're going to put our ribbon closures. So let's glue these two together. You can use any glue. I've decided to go with double-sided tape today just to speed things up a bit. And then of course where the black dots are, you need to punch a hole for your ribbon closures. So I'm just going to fold this quickly before I glue it in. That looks good. Make sure it's nice and flat. For the cover, you can do your folds nice and flat, and just make sure it gives you a nice box shape when you close it up. So I'll glue that on. And with the double-sided tape, you need to be quite careful because once it's on, it's on. And just make sure it's properly aligned so that you don't have to redo it if you're using double-sided tape. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. I always fold the parts to see if it's not sticking over or if it's not a bit under the fold, because you want it right at the fold. So when you fold that flap in, you can see whether you did it properly or not. Hopefully you did, because as I said, with the tape you cannot redo it. Okay, so your inside might look different depending on the backing paper you chose. So I'm just going to fold it again and make sure that fold is sharp and will give me a nice boxed shape when I do my folio cover and I close it up. So there we go, you can see the spine's looking good. And again, I'm just going to flatten it a bit more. I'm happy with that, so we can move on and we can do the part number 2. Part number 2 also has a dot that you need to punch out so that you can pull your ribbon through. So we'll do that just now after we've glued everything together. So I'll just make sure again that I'm getting my alignment as good as possible. You can cut your corners of your glue flaps diagonally like I did on that one corner, but I actually prefer on this not to do it so that I have a bigger surface that my parts are being glued together with. Oops, let me just try again. I didn't align that very nicely. Luckily I didn't press down on the double-sided tape. Okay, so that looks better. Make sure it's straight and aligned at the top and the bottom and exactly on that fold so that it doesn't go over or under the fold. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and fold these folds the way I've just glued. Make sure they're nice and sharp. to get my box shape. I'm happy with that. And there you can see the box as it's already in a box shape, because the third panel folds into the whole folio. So now I'm going to glue on the third panel. Again, get your alignment as straight as possible, and your folio cover will look nice and sharp. Okay, so aligning that last third panel. There we go. If there's anything that doesn't look right, you can always trim it, and then just make sure there's nothing sticking out. Make sure that these folds are also nice and crisp. Just gonna and sharp. My I'm actually Afrikaans speaking. I'm sure you've heard my accent. So I always joke and say sometimes my English brain just does not work. So some days I find it hard to get all the words in order. So please excuse me. But there you go. That's your third panel. And again, just make sure those folds are nice and sharp so that you can get a good boxed shape for your folio. Okay, it looks good. I'm happy with that. Just flatten that fold as well. It's not sticking over. Actually went pretty well. It's not perfect, but it looks very decent. So what we're gonna do next is the ribbon closure. I'm just filling around with it, making sure all my folds are where they need to be and everything's fitting correctly. Does look good. So we can go ahead and do the ribbon closures. So you can use lace or ribbon or string or whatever you want. I've decided to go with a bold black ribbon, and I'm not sure of the length, so I'm just going to keep it long for now. So what you want to do is you want to push it through the hole, and we're going to glue it in on the inside. So it's going to be lying like this on the inside, but then pulled through the hole towards the outside. So I'm just going to use my normal glue stick for this and just place some glue on the ribbon, making sure it doesn't go over into the spine because that's not necessary. Okay, so once you've glued that on, you can pull that through the hole you punched. And depending on what you've chosen, it can be a little bit tricky. You can put in an eyelet in that hole. It will finish it off quite nicely. And then it will also help that it doesn't wear out your paper when you're closing your folio with your ribbon or string or whatever. So once that's done, we can go ahead and glue the liner for the flap. Okay, so I'm using the glue stick for this to make sure I get my glue everywhere on that liner so that it goes on nice and flat onto my cover and doesn't pull off later on or have spaces where there's no glue or whatever. So I'm just gonna cover this whole liner with glue stick to make sure it goes on properly. So once I've got my glue on, I can glue it onto the folio cover and make sure that your ribbon is lying as flat as possible where it goes through the hole. If you have a larger ribbon like me, it might have a bit of a bump there where the ribbon is going through the hole. But just try and get your liner as flat as possible around the ribbon, and make sure it's not going over your fold line, because then your paper will catch there every time you fold and close your folio, and it will wear out on that fold line. So just make sure it's as flat as possible and aligned as best as possible. If there's anything sticking out at the front, you can just trim that off, and you can ink your edges to round it off as well, which I've done later on. So that looks good. Now we can do the second ribbon, and it's going to lie towards the right hand side, and we're going to glue it towards the left, as where we're going to glue the tail end of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue stick, glue it on to the middle left hand side, and I'm just going to trim it. Again, you don't want it to go over the fold into the spine. Your liner will keep your ribbon in place. So I pull that through, and there we go. Just making sure it's flat. So I'm going to go ahead and glue in the second panel, the liner, in the same manner that I've did the cover flap. So I will just glue it nice and flat, making sure it doesn't go over my fold lines, and that it's as flat as possible where the ribbon is, and making sure it's not sticking out. If you need to trim something, you can do that as well. And then after you've trimmed things off, you can ink your edges. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, and now you can see our cover is complete, and we have our ribbon that we can close it with, and we can carry on now to do the envelopes and all of that goes inside. So first we'll start with the envelopes with the circle closures. Don't mind the waterfall cards in the center panel. I actually ended up redoing them, so this was my first video, and then I redid the waterfall cards in the center, so just ignore that. So you can make a hole where the black dots are, or just cut a small slit into your paper, slot into your paper, and then you can put your circle, your split pin in, and through your circle closure little piece of cotton, and then through the envelope. And you can use a little spacer if you want to make sure you have enough space for your string or ribbon that you want to use. And then split the pin open in the back. And then what I like to do is to just glue on a piece of cardstock over that, and some clear tape if you want, just to make it smooth, so that when you inserting your cards into your envelopes, it doesn't catch on the on the split pins. So you can do that if you want, or you can leave that out. It's entirely up to you if you want to cover the back, but I highly recommend it, so you won't have your cards getting stuck on those pins on the inside of your envelope. Okay, so now I can do the other side. So that was for the top flap of the envelope. Now I'll do the bottom one. Again, you're going to insert your split pin through the circle that you've cut out and then through your envelope. I'm using very small ones. You can of course use bigger ones. And then again you can use your little spacer to give space for your ribbon or string. And again I'm going to cover it with a piece of cardboard and some clear tape. So I'll go on and do that. Okay, so now that's done. I'm gonna try to show you how I fold the sides. But you don't have to do it that way. You can just fold it back straight. Because I did try to make some extra space for cards. So you're gonna fold it inward and then back outward. But I'm gonna fold it outward a little bit diagonally because it just looks neater with this style of envelope. But you don't have to do that. You can just fold it straight if that's too difficult. And then you can always trim it off if you don't like the look of it sticking out or anything. But there we go. I've folded it diagonally, so smaller at the top and then going down bigger towards the bottom. So now you can place your glue or tape onto that little part that you've just folded back towards the outside, and then that's where we are going to glue our bottom flap onto that to close our envelope. Okay, now so we can glue it closed and just make sure it's nice and flat so that your envelope doesn't pull open or come loose. And now that's done. I've already done the second one as well, and now we're just going to glue it onto the folio. So you can decide where or how you want to do them. So you don't have to do them on the left panel. You can also put them on the right hand side. I do recommend keeping the waterfall cards and pockets in the center panel because of the weight, but the left and right panel you can change around if you want. You don't have to put both on the same side. You can do one on each side. It's completely up to you, because the horizontal pockets can also be split up and you can put, say, 3 on one side and 2 on the other side below your envelope or above it, so you can completely mix and match and do it as you want to do it. Okay, so there I've got my bottom one in place. Looks good. Just make sure you don't go over your spine where the fold is when you're gluing your envelopes in, so that it doesn't catch on the fold or become worn out. Every time you fold it, it will scrape against the side of the envelope. So make sure you put it nice and center so that it doesn't go over that fold. Okay, so I'm going to just glue this one in. And always try and make it as straight as possible, especially when you're working with your double-sided tape. You can't really move it. Again, make sure it doesn't go over your folds. You can use any glue, but for today I decided to use double-sided tape for most of the things. just makes it a bit easier for me to prepare everything beforehand. So now we will move on to the waterfall pockets and slide in cards. So here's one that's finished. That's actually number 8. But I'll first show you how to do one, and I've already done the others. So basically there's 8 of them, and you're going to start with number 1 at the top, cascading down to number 8. So I'm actually going to start gluing in number 8 first, but let me show you how to assemble them. You've got a front that's just like a frame, and you can do the slide in on the right hand side, or if you want you can do it on the left hand side. The artwork is in a way that you can get away with turning it around. So the frame, I've decided to put my tape on the glue flaps of the frame, but in hindsight I think it might be easier with alignment to actually put the glue or your tape on the back panel rather than on the frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the bottom strip, sorry, the side strip, and try to align it as best I can. I'm first going to just touch that corner in. So because we're now working on the back side, you'll see that spine and glue flap of the back panel showing towards you. So I'm just going to try and align it with only the corner being glued on now. And the trick with this is to keep your items lying flat as possible. So I'm going to pull out that strip and glue that side on, and then the bottom. So it's kind of tricky to get your alignment perfect on this. It might actually be easier to use a glue stick for this part, because you can still move it around afterwards. So now I'm pulling off that top strip. This one is a little bit tricky because you have to get your fingers in there. As I said, I think a glue stick will actually be easier for this part, and also placing the glue on the back panel rather than your front frame. Okay, so that's not perfect, but I'm happy with that. It's good enough. So you'll see this one has a very small spine. This is number 7 that I've showed you. So now I'm going to check how to do the spacing. I'm actually going to start with number 8 because I want it as close to the bottom as possible. Just to distribute the weight a bit more. Again, make sure you don't go over your fold line, so make it center because there is a little bit of space on either side. So just make sure you center it and align it towards the bottom. I'm just going to check if I have enough space for all 8. If I put it there, looks good. I do think I will put it as close to the bottom as possible, but not 100% aligned with the bottom. So now we can glue that down and just make sure it's as straight as possible as well. It just gives a better effect if your waterfall cards, pockets and cards are aligned nice and straight, because you will definitely see if they are not. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the straighter you get it, the better. Okay, so that's that one. I'm going to do the next one. So this is number 7. Just make sure that's nice and flat. Let's glue in number 7. So space wise, you want to put it as close as possible to the bottom one, because your measurements will work out that way, that your glue flap is the amount of space you need to give for each waterfall pocket. So you want to align it flush with your one that you just did. You can start at the top as well. If you want to start at the top, you're going to start with number 1 and work your way down to number 8. And you'll see as it goes up, the spines get bigger and bigger to make space for the ones lying beneath. So your first one, number 1, is going to have the biggest spine, and that's the one that's lying on top of everyone. Your last one, number 8, doesn't have a spine because it doesn't need to make space for one below it. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm just measuring, making sure I do have enough space, but it is fine. And I will continue gluing on the next one. Make sure I've got it aligned properly. There we go, that's better. And just make sure that glue flap is glued in nice and flat so that it won't come loose later on. And there we go. So now just carry on gluing in all the rest. Try not to squish your spines. As you see, I'm showing you the spine there. They're getting bigger and bigger. Try not to press them or squish them flat while you're doing this. But it's not too hard if you focus on only flattening your glue flap and making sure that's glued on. Then you shouldn't mess up the spine. Oh, let's try again. That's better. And I'll glue that in nice and flat, making sure it doesn't catch anywhere. And I'll just continue to do the rest. There we go. I'll carry on like this. You'll see the spines are getting bigger and bigger. Okay, so that's the third last one. That would be number 3. And number 2. And now you'll see number 1 is in as well. My video cut out a bit there. Sorry about that. But there we have all 8. And it looks gorgeous. Okay, so I've already done the sliding cards. I just want to give you a quick note. So if you print your waterfall pockets, the front frame obviously has a big cutout in the middle. So you're printing them on backing paper, and then that cutout you can save to make extra cards and decorate however you want. So just to show you quickly, it gives you 8 extra cards that you can make and decorate and all of that. So here's my sliding cards. I've already put the tabs on. You just fold them in half and glue them over your sliding card. And of course I've printed them on backing paper as well. So they all have lines at the back where you can write notes or poems or recipes or whatever you want to do with your folio. And of course you can decorate it some more and just make it your own unique folio and cards. So I'm just going to continue putting all of them in. It looks so good. So you can cascade your tabs as well or do however you like. So I've tried to cascade them down a bit so that they're not all in the same place. When you're doing your tabs, just make sure they are not sticking out too much, as there's not that much space in your folio, and then they might be in the way of your fold and they will get squished up when you close your folio. So just make sure they only stick out a little bit like mine. You can just measure it for yourself and just make sure that they're not going over your fold of your spine, so that they will fit in there nicely. And there we go. That's the last one, and they should fit quite easily because they are sized a little bit smaller than your frame. So now we can move on to the horizontal pockets. They are the easiest part of this folio. So you can do them however you want. As I said, you can do some on the left and some on the right. I'm just going to cascade all 5 of them and just glue them on top of each other like this. So I'm going to leave about 3 centimeters space. That's about 1.18 inches, I think. So let's say 1.1 to 1.18 inches. Don't go further than that apart, because then your top pocket won't be able to take the larger tags, as it will be too close to the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure out so that I don't place them at different spacings, because that will look a bit odd, I think, for what I'm trying to achieve. So I'll just measure out 3 centimeters or 1.18 inches for each, and once I've measured that, I'll draw some lines just to make sure I get them nice and straight. Okay, now I'll just draw some lines for myself so that I can get them aligned straight. Otherwise, I might go a bit skew. So I've picked out my order, and the first one will be going on there. And make sure again that you're not going over your fold line on the left hand side there, where your spine is. So with these pockets, they basically just fit onto the panel. So you want to align it towards your outer edge as much as possible, so that you don't go over your fold line. So I'll first glue in the bottom glue flap, and then the 2 sides. So I'm happy with that. I'll do the 2 sides. And that looks good, nice and straight. It's not going over my fold. Happy with that. So I'll carry on to do the next one. So 3 centimeters down, and you'll see if you want to cascade them, you have to start with the top one, otherwise you're going to glue your openings over each other. So doing the next one down, and I find it easier to just do the bottom and then the sides. You can do all 3 at once. If you're using a different glue, you might be able to still manipulate yours afterwards. With the double-sided tape, you have to be quite exact. Once you glue it down, it's on there. You can't remove it or move it around. That looks good. So I'll just carry on to do the next 2, and again just 3 centimeters down. Actually want to quickly ink those edges just a little bit. There you go, that stands out a bit more. So now I'll continue to glue on the next 2. Again, making sure your alignment is as good as possible. What's going on with me today? Keep getting tongue-tied. So there we go, and now I'll do the last one. Again, I aligned it towards the bottom, but just slightly up. I don't want it to stick out or anything, so I prefer putting things just slightly up and not completely on the outer edge, especially because you'll see the sides of your folio is open except for the top, the waterfall pockets, because that's got a spine. So that's the last one, and that looks amazing. As I said, you can switch it around, do some of these on the left with an envelope and on the right with an envelope, or just like I did. It's completely up to you. So these cards are a bit smaller. There's 6 of them, but you can do more. They are going into the circle enclosure envelopes. I mean circle closure envelopes. Goodness. So there we go. And I'm gonna put a nice piece of rough string to close my envelopes. So I think something lacy would have also been very nice, or just a ribbon, anything you like. But I think this goes quite well with the country and the shabby chic sort of vibe. So I'm just going to quickly do that. So those are finished, and it looks gorgeous. So I'll show you my cards and tags. I've already done them and tucked them in because I just couldn't wait to see how it looks. And now I will just pull them out to show you what they look like. But you can decorate them, of course. You can add string and ribbons, you can add other embellishments, whatever you want to do. You can go for as much or as little as you want. And there's 12 large tags and I think 10 of the postcards. Sorry, 10 large tags and 12 postcards. So there's really enough to work with. And you have your extra cards from the cutouts that you can also do stuff with. I really love how these came out. They look so gorgeous. And I love the colors of the French country shabby chic theme. So that's it. And I'll show you how it looks closed. Thanks for watching, and be sure to visit my Etsy store for more beautiful items to make. And there we go. That's our folio done. Looks gorgeous. I think I'll just trim the ribbon a bit, but other than that, it looks great.